Zip Tie Domes presents The Hidden History of the Geodesic Dome, a study of how new ideas are formed. Part 5, The Rediscovery of the Geodesic Dome at Black Mountain College. Black Mountain College, near Asheville, North Carolina, was where Buckminster Fuller rediscovered the geodesic dome in 1949. For the original 1924 design of Walter Beiersfield's geodesic dome had been forgotten for 25 years. And there are some very good reasons why Fuller rediscovered the geodesic dome at Black Mountain College. First, Black Mountain College was an incubator of new ideas. Black Mountain was less of a traditional college and was operating more along the lines of a social experiment. And only at this unique institution could someone like Bucky Fuller be allowed to teach college-age students. For even though he was a genius, Bucky Fuller had never graduated from any college and did not have the graduate degrees or teacher certification courses that are needed to teach at a mainline university. And at Black Mountain College, Fuller was given the freedom to use his students to help him construct whatever geodesic shapes he needed to make the first prototypes for his geodesic dome. The freedom that comes through the helpful assistance and open communication between artistic people is an important ingredient for innovation. And this freedom also attracted a lot of very innovative people to Black Mountain College. And each additional innovative person at Black Mountain College was like adding sticks to a fire, and Black Mountain College was already hot. But there was one very innovative person at Black Mountain College that would be the key to Fuller's rediscovery of the geodesic dome. For when Bucky Fuller taught at Black Mountain College in 1948, the architect Walter Gropius was on the advisory board for the college and visited the college often. Walter Gropius was one of the world's most influential architects, and probably the only architect in America that had actually seen Beiersfield's original 1924 geodesic dome on the rooftop of the Zeiss factory in Jena, Germany. For this reason, Walter Gropius could possibly be the connection between the 1924 dome of Walter Beiersfield and the 1948 dome of Bucky Fuller. Regardless, all of these chance circumstances came together in 1948 to help Bucky Fuller make the rediscovery of the geodesic dome possible. So let's look at the history of the Black Mountain College, a very alternative type of liberal arts educational facility, to understand why it was a place of innovation. Black Mountain College was founded in 1933 by John Andrew Rice and 3 other teachers. Black Mountain College started with just 21 students, with no real funding, and was so obscure it probably would not have survived more than a few years. But the international fame that Black Mountain College needed to survive, and that it still has today, came with the arrival of Joseph and Annie Albers to Black Mountain College, both of whom formerly taught at the Bauhaus School in Germany. For in 1933, when the German Weimar Republic was voted out of office, the state-funded Bauhaus School lost its funding and was closed. Joseph and Annie Albers left the Bauhaus School in Germany in 1933 and arrived the same year at Black Mountain College. And it was Joseph Albers, who was the lifelong friend of Walter Gropius, that led the art department of Black Mountain College to become known worldwide as a successful artistic learning center. Joseph Albers was considered one of the most gifted modern artists of his day. While at the Bauhaus School in Weimar, Germany, Joseph Albers' artistic talent was so convincing that Walter Gropius appointed him as a junior master even before his final apprenticeship exam. As director of the preliminary course of the Bauhaus, Albers developed a pioneering approach to art education that he brought to Black Mountain College and later to Yale University. Joseph's wife, Annie Albers, was perhaps the best-known textile artist of the 20th century. In 1949, she became the first designer to have a one-person exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. Although John Andrew Rice was asked to leave Black Mountain College in 1940, he did imprint some of his progressive social ideas on Black Mountain College, to which the progressive educators Joseph and Annie Alpers could relate and add their ideas from the Bauhaus School in Germany. Black Mountain College prospered under the artistic leadership of Joseph Alpers. Good art attracts talented people, and so the good artistic techniques taught by Joseph Alpers brought positive results to Black Mountain College. Joseph and Annie Alpers remained at Black Mountain College from 1933 until 1949, when Joseph left to head the Department of Design at Yale University in 1950. As long as Joseph and Annie Alpers led Black Mountain College, it flourished. For the Alpers had contacts around the world and attracted some of the most famous artists of the 20th century to Black Mountain College. Artists like the sculptor Ruth Asawa, the painter Robert Motherwell, the artist Cy Twombly, modern artist Robert Rauschenberg, dance choreographer Merce Cunningham, the musical composer John Cage, the Dutch artist Willem de Kooning and Elaine de Kooning, and the poet Allen Ginsberg. These artists and others like them made their home at Black Mountain due to the positive creative atmosphere created by Joseph Alpers. Black Mountain wasn't just a school. Joseph Alpers made it into more of an international artist colony where the students could participate with the artistic legends of that day. For the students, Black Mountain College was an experimental school that prioritized art as the primary component of education. The school also used non-hierarchical methodologies that placed students and educators on the same plane. In addition to artistic projects, students were required to participate in farm work, construction projects, and kitchen duty as part of their holistic education. Students were involved in all of the decisions involving the school, even to the point of deciding when they wished to graduate, which few ever did. There were no course requirements, grades, or degrees. Black Mountain College closed in 1957 due to financial issues. And it was to this alternative college that Bucky Fuller was hired to teach architecture for the 1948 and 1949 summer sessions. According to Kenneth Snelson, in 1948, Bucky Fuller was unknown to most of the Black Mountain students in those early days. Fuller turned up 2 weeks into the 1948 summer session as a substitute for a professor of architecture who canceled a week before the summer began. Joseph Alpers asked Kenneth Snelson to assist Fuller in assembling his assortment of geometric models for his evening lecture at the college. All Fuller had when he came to Black Mountain were various geometric models and an early great circle version of his geodesic dome that was entirely his own design, along with a group of 8 or so students that followed him wherever he went. But the problem with these great circle domes is that the hubs, or connection points, are just a simple overlapping of struts and are not designed to help with the curvature of the dome. So the struts themselves must flex and bend to create the dome curvature. And any material that can be bent 180 degrees to make a curved dome surface will not be strong enough for a large application, such as permanent housing. Fuller found this out at the end of the first 1948 summer session when he and his students tried to build a large great circle dome made out of Venetian blinds. The dome collapsed during construction, which Fuller said was exactly what he was trying to do. Fuller then explained that the project was not to build a dome, but to find the bending strength of this material. Some of the students called Fuller's dome experiment the Flopahedron. Kenneth Snelson said that after this dome collapsed, Fuller took him up on top of a nearby building so they could look down on the dome, opened a book that had a diagram of bacterial DNA, and Fuller exclaimed, "Look, the DNA in bacteria has the same design as our Venetian blind dome." Kenneth Snelson said that he was so young at the time, and Fuller was so sure of himself, that it was impossible for him to take issue over any of Fuller's ideas. But if we look at the small dome model that Fuller had built in the summer of 1948, it is a great circle dome made up of pentagons and hexagons. If we look closely, we could see that there are 5-sided pentagons surrounded by 6-sided hexagons. This pattern is repeated over the rest of the dome. This first dome attempt by Fuller is similar to the truncated icosahedron, or soccer ball design, made of pentagons surrounded by hexagons, that was used by Walter Beiersfeld for his Starfield planetarium projectors and geodesic dome design. And Fuller's first dome is similar to the standard 3-frequency geodesic domes we have today. These domes are based on the icosahedron and so are made up of pentagons that are surrounded by hexagons. And so Fuller's dome in the summer of 1948 is similar in some ways to a standard geodesic dome. But it is not quite the same, as it has these 10-way connections inside the pentagons, and these 12-way connections inside the hexagons. While the common Class 1 geodesic dome we have today has a much simpler 5-way connection inside the pentagons, and a 6-way connection inside the hexagons. So, Bucky Fuller's prototype, produced at the end of the summer session of 1948, is obviously a different type of geodesic dome, which is called a Class 2 dome. Fuller knew that a truncated icosahedron soccer ball design was a correct method, but he did not have the basic engineering skills to know that Venetian blind struts bent into a 180-degree loop would not be a very strong design. Otherwise, his Flopahedron dome would not have failed so spectacularly in front of all the students and faculty of Black Mountain College. But the next year, these problems were solved, and the dome that Bucky Fuller built at the next summer session in 1949 was successful. Instead of Venetian blinds, this 1949 dome used lightweight aluminum tubing with actual hubs for joints. It was lightweight and strong enough to support the weight of several people. This is considered to be Fuller's first geodesic dome. So what happened between the time of the Flopahedron Great Circle Dome Fuller produced in 1948 and this working geodesic dome that Fuller produced in 1949? Prior to showing his working dome at Black Mountain in the spring of 1949, Fuller had spent the winter of 1948 and 1949 teaching at the Institute of Design in Chicago, where he lived with Warren and Mary Alton, 2 Black Mountain students he met from the 1948 summer session. It was at the Institute of Design in Chicago where Fuller and his students had designed the first working geodesic dome, which Fuller called the Autonomous Dwelling Unit. The dome was a 31 great circle structure made with aircraft tubing laced with cables, which ran from the tubes through the connectors at the joints. When the cable was tightened, the dome was erect. When relaxed, it collapsed into an easily transported compact form. Fuller's concept and execution of a folding geodesic dome was absolutely brilliant. The prototype for the dome which Fuller brought with him to Black Mountain had been constructed for a demonstration at the Pentagon that winter. Assuming it would be erected indoors, it was actually erected in the Pentagon courtyard, Fuller had reduced the size to 14 feet in diameter to accommodate an indoor space. Since the dome had already been completed, the student project for the summer session at Black Mountain was the construction of a double-walled, inflatable plastic skin cover for the dome. The students erected the dome on a terrace at the end of the studies building. They demonstrated its strength by hanging by their hands from the structure and from a suspended platform on which a number of people could sit. Its light weight was demonstrated by having 3 students lifted above their heads. This dome was similar to the Flopahedron Venetian blind dome in that it had pentagons with a 10-way connection hub in the center. And it had hexagons with a 12-way connection hub in the center. This is called a triacon Class II dome design. Fuller later used the same triacon dome design for providing shelter to the United States Army. You can see a pentagon with a 10-way connection hub in the center, and a hexagon with a 12-way connection hub in the center. So here is Fuller's triacon dome design on the left and the Beyersfield dome design on the right. Did Fuller just copy the dome of Walter Beyersfield? The obvious answer is no. Fuller used a totally different dome design than did Beyersfield. Walter Beyersfield built what we call a Class I geodesic dome, which is the standard geodesic dome design you see everywhere today. In the Class I dome, each face of the icosahedron is subdivided with lines that are parallel to the sides of the triangle. Every time you subdivide the triangle, this increases the dome frequency. This Class I subdivision generates a dome with a flat base for the 2nd, 4th, and 6th frequencies, and a somewhat flat base for the 1st, 3rd, and 5th frequencies. The Class I dome has simple 5-way hub connections and simple 6-way hub connections. There are no 10 or 12-way hub connections. The Class I dome can be identified as it has a straight line of struts that connects the 5-way pentagons. You can see this straight line of struts in the Beyersfield dome, as there are 16 struts in the straight line that connect the 5-way pentagons in this picture. But Fuller is using a Class II dome design at Black Mountain based on a triacon division of the icosahedron triangle. With a Class II triacon dome, each face of the icosahedron triangle is subdivided with lines that are perpendicular to the sides of the triangle. This shows the difference between the tessellation or division of the icosahedron triangles of the Class I and Class II domes. You can see how the icosahedron triangle is divided differently in each class. Since the Class II triacon breakdown is symmetrical about a line drawn down the center of the icosahedron triangle, the Class II is only possible in even frequencies such as 2, 4, 6, and 8. The Fuller triacon class domes will not have a flat base in any frequency and always produce some small triangular sections at the foundation of the dome, so it does not have a smooth foundation line. Let's compare the foundation of a Fuller triacon Class II dome to the foundation of a Class I Beyersfield dome design. See the difference? As we have seen, Fuller's Class II dome will have a 10-way connection for the pentagons and a 12-way connection for the hexagons. These 10 and 12-way connections requires a very complex hub design. And between any of the 5-way connections for a Fuller Class II triacon dome, there will not be a straight line of struts as in the Class I dome, but a line drawn between the 5-way connection points will cross the centers of various triangles. Fuller's triacon division is not new. It was a problem proposed and solved by the German mathematician Hermann Schwarz in 1873, namely to find all spherical triangles which lead, by repeated reflection in their sides, to a set of congruent triangles covering the sphere a finite number of times. Fuller's triacon division is really a Schwarz triangle. Fuller's studies of the 31 great circles became the topological basis for a subdivision of the icosahedron into smaller cells that would describe his geodesic domes. The basic unit of the 31 great circle intersections Fuller used is a Schwarz triangle of 1/120th of a sphere. From this information, we can analyze the drawings from Fuller's 1954 geodesic dome patent to find that it describes a Class II triacon dome design. And the major claims of Fuller's 1954 geodesic dome patent also reference a great circle arc dome design, which is a feature found in Fuller's Class II triacon dome, but not in Beiersfield's Class I dome. So, Bucky Fuller's Class II triacon dome did not copy or repatent the Class I dome of Walter Beiersfield. He created and received a patent on an entirely new dome design. And Fuller's Class II triacon dome design is much better for building very large domes because it requires a lower number of different strut lengths as the dome frequency increases. With the Fuller Class II dome, as the frequency increases, the number of strut lengths increases arithmetically, with the number of strut lengths being the same as the frequency. A very large 20-frequency Class II dome will have only 20 different strut lengths. With the Beiersfield Class I domes, the number of strut lengths increases geometrically with an increase in frequency. A very large 20-frequency Class I dome will have 110 different strut lengths, which makes a large Class I dome very difficult to manufacture and assemble. So, for smaller domes, the Class I approach is easier to build, but for larger domes, using the Class II design is a much better option. And this Class II triacon and other dome designs made Fuller the only designer that could successfully build very large domes, such as this dome in Montreal. So, did Walter Gropius tell Bucky Fuller at Black Mountain College about his visit to the Beiersfield Dome in 1924? If he did, Fuller would have been wise to have listened to Gropius and learned all that he could. And the influence of Walter Gropius would explain why Fuller invented his very first dome at Black Mountain College. But regardless of where it came from, the seed of the geodesic dome idea appears to have been planted in Bucky Fuller's mind at Black Mountain College. And through his possible interaction with Walter Gropius, did Fuller know of Beiersfield's patent in dome design and then use a different approach so that Fuller could receive a United States patent on his entirely different dome design? That would also be a very wise thing to do. But Fuller's geodesic dome invention was also protected by a trade secret, which is much stronger than any patent. Through his research and study of the geodesic dome, only Bucky Fuller knew the chord factors that would mathematically determine the correct strut lengths to build a geodesic dome. This trade secret allowed Bucky Fuller to be the only source of his Class II triacon domes and the only source for the Beiersfield Class I domes, such as this Class I dome that Fuller sold to the United States 8th Army in Korea. Not until Lloyd Kahn published his Dome Book 2 in 1971 did the geodesic dome chord factors and other tables necessary to build a Beiersfield Class I dome become available to anyone other than a small circle of Fuller licensees. By protecting this information as a trade secret shows us how brilliant Fuller really was. So let's conclude this series of videos with a discussion of the genius of Bucky Fuller. All of the earlier inventions that Fuller independently developed, such as the Dymaxion House, the Dymaxion Car, the Dymaxion Bathroom, and the Dymaxion Deployment Unit, these ideas were all commercial failures. Fuller never involved other experts to help him with their design, and they all contained a subtle flaw that made them completely fail in the marketplace. The same is true of Fuller's patented ideas that came after the Geodesic Dome, such as the Submarine Island patent for submerged living quarters. These ideas were so futuristic and too fantastic to be practical in the mid-20th century. But the concept of his geodesic dome was based on a prior working model of Walter Bayer's field, which was used to create a lightweight spherical planetarium. I believe Fuller was given the seed of this idea by Walter Gropius at Black Mountain College. Fuller took the concept of the Bayersfield dome and modified the design to instead use Schwarz triangles, which was first described by the German mathematician Hermann Schwarz in 1873. Fuller's true genius was to apply his new composite design to army shelters, radar domes, and other applications. Fuller as an inventor was successful only when he modified an older proven design as a new way to solve the problems of his day. That is an excellent lesson for any inventor, that we should first look at older ideas that have been successful and then combine them with other technology to solve a current problem. But Bucky Fuller had one other trait that made him more successful than 99% of all of the other inventors. Fuller was a salesman and an educator and was quite dramatic at times. Through these techniques, he was able to get his ideas to the public in a captivating way. Bucky Fuller attributed his considerable success in lecturing to Arthur Penn, who in 1948 was a young student at Black Mountain College. Arthur Penn later directed several famous Hollywood films, such as Bonnie and Clyde and Little Big Man. In 1948 at Black Mountain College, the 26-year-old Arthur Penn produced a play called The Ruse of Medusa and cast Bucky Fuller in the leading role as the comical Baron Medusa. Arthur Penn helped Bucky Fuller fit into the role by using techniques to help Fuller forget himself and assume the role of Baron Medusa in the play. And so Bucky Fuller learned from Arthur Penn how to become an actor at Black Mountain College and how to forget everything else in order to hold the attention of an audience. This is how Bucky Fuller became one of the best-known inventors in history. For being able to present your ideas to an audience is a skill that every inventor should have. I hope you have enjoyed this video series on the hidden history of the Geodesic Dome.